welcome back. I'm your host, Ryan Rothstein, on a Tuesday. Back from the holiday weekend. Hope everyone had a great Memorial Day and weekend, even though I had to dust off my winter jacket. It's all right. Still enjoyed some time with family and friends. Hope you did the same. I'm sure our next guest enjoyed his weekend as well. John McMullen, our NFL Eagles insider. Follow him on Twitter at JFMcMullen, PhillyVoice.com, SI.com, and host of Birds 365 Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Johnny Mac, how we doing?
Doing well, Ryan. Yeah, I saw this glowing orb in the sky on Monday. I didn't know what to do with myself. Kind of a washout of a weekend. Disappointing.
Yeah, disappointing to say the least. I mean, sort of comparable to Ben Simmons and his offensive game.
Hey, 0 for 11. I mean, he hit it, and then he went on a run. What did he finish? 5 of 10 in the game, 5 of 11. That's a heck of a free throw shooter. But you can't criticize Ben Simmons, Ryan. Can't criticize.
No.
Sure, you got to play 4 on 5 offense in the stretch of the game. This is why I said it was on Rich's show earlier. The Brooklyn Nets, you have to pray, and by the way, none of this matters if Joel Embiid can't play. But if he's healthy and ready to go, which is big if, maybe bigger than him, you can't beat Brooklyn. They have 3 killers at the end of games. If you're in a close game, you're losing. They have 3 closers.
Yeah.
And you're playing 4 on 5 offensively. So to beat Brooklyn, you got to be up by 10, 15 points in the fourth quarter, which is possible if Joel plays well. But that's the kind of games you have to win. You can't win close games. I don't know how other way to say it. They cannot win close games how they are built to this point. And I get what I don't kill Doc Rivers. He's trying to protect the player. That's fine. That's all nonsense. But I mean, the people who think this guy is it's bizarre to me. And I put that on Twitter today. It's okay to say does a lot of things really, really well. Does a couple things really, really poorly. And those things kill you at the end of games.
I get Doc trying to protect his player. He's only going to say certain things in a presser. He's coming off a loss. He knew those questions were coming. He's frustrated. He's angry. The list goes on and on. But come on, dude. Like, don't talk to us like we're idiots and say, well, analytically, 1 point per 100 possessions, and then say, oh, you want me to take Ben out? Ben Simmons? Phil Jackson did it with Shaq. If he can do it with him, you can do it with Ben freaking Simmons.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I have no problem with people who criticize Doc. I just meant I get what he's doing from a coaching perspective.
Right, me too.
But yeah, he can handle it better. I mean, they're valid questions. I've said from the start, look, Daryl Morey understands the problem. He understands the problem. He tried to trade him. Doc Rivers understands the problem, but they're trying to do the best with the hand that they're dealt, and right now they have him. And I've said this pretty consistently. They're going to play him, too, at the end of games because 2 things happen. He either turns the corner, becomes a better, more well-rounded player. You win a championship. That's great. That's the best-case scenario. Worst-case scenario, it becomes abundantly clear you got to move on, and it makes it easier to move on, even if you get less value than people would expect because they've seen the flaws.
Yeah, it's like nothing's going to change at this point. Like, No,
I agree with that. That's pie in the sky that something can change. You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, he's never been this bad a free throw shooter. You would hope he could get to the 65 level. You would hope he would get to the point where he can make some big shots down the stretch of the game because he's done that in the past. That's gotten really. I mean, he started 0 for 11. That's absurd. That is absurd. I think Bob Petrone, I'll give him the credit, is the old stat guy for the Philadelphia Inquirer and the Daily News. He had put a second worst free throw shooting performance in NBA history to this point in a series, and that was after making 5. Remember, he started that 0 for 11. That was the worst, that by far the worst. That's absurd. Shaq laughs at that.
Right. I'm not even mad. I'm actually impressed. I don't know what happened to this city, John, and we're not going to spend this whole segment.
I don't know. I don't know what happened.
No, but let me just finish the thought.
It's not everybody.
Go ahead,
I want to say it's not everybody. There's a lot of people who criticize him, but there is, and it's a growing minority, I would say. And they just, I see, here goes the Philadelphia media trying to run a guy out of town. We don't give a you-know-what.
Right.
We don't care. I mean, to ask somebody who covers a sport objectively to not point out the obvious faults of this player, what do you expect? I mean, if any other player, could you imagine LeBron James going 0 for 11 from the free throw line? What would the reaction be?
Huh. I can't even imagine. Yeah.
It's absurd to me. And this used to be, the old reputation of the hardest town to play in. I don't know what happened. Obviously, it's a younger generation. They don't feel the same way. There's this blind loyalty. Well, good luck with that. I mean, the flaws are obvious, and everybody can see them.
It's it's social media and Twitter. Like you tweet out about an athlete's flaws, and people interpret that for you're not able to acknowledge any of the strengths, and you are bashing them. It's like, dude, how can anyone with 2 eyes who knows sports even on an average level not comprehend that Ben is a liability and it's a massive issue? But
well, I would ask these people to look at Bradley Beal, which is laughable, but maybe even Russell Westbrook, because he's not the greatest shooter in the world. I mean, you would be laughing at Russell Westbrook if he started the series 0 for 11 from the free throw line. You would be mocking him mercilessly because it's unbelievable. It's so poor. It's so ridiculous. So if you look at it from that standpoint, I mean, that's how other people who don't have skin in the game, who aren't just reacting with emotion, are saying, this just isn't good enough. That's not hating. That's facts. That's reality.
You've posted a handful of new articles since we last spoke, John, and we're going to get to all of those topics in just a minute. But I do really want your thoughts on the fan behavior we've seen over the past week or two.
Oh, they're idiots. I mean, it's interesting because I do look. I mean, I know everybody was cooped up. I don't understand the mentality to want to throw something at an athlete. But again, we're talking about emotion. Now, I'm a wrestling guy. I go back to when, Roddy Piper was the, greatest heel in the history of the business. There was unbelievable amounts of stuff being thrown at him on a daily basis. The world's changed. You can't do that stuff anymore. I don't know why it's so hard for some people to understand that. But there does seem to be a problem. The NBA's got to get a hold of it. I think, yesterday was probably the worst. Because, I mean, there's somebody going on the floor and they had to be tackled, which is worse than a water bottle or popcorn or any of that stuff. I mean, just sit and watch the game. You're paying extraordinary amounts of money to go to these games. Why do you want to get kicked out?
Yeah, it's and it's strange. I feel like now it's become like a trend. Like at each building, each city, someone decides to be the next jackass. But
well, yeah. Then you have knuckleheads who want publicity and they want to be on social media. As you know, social media is the end of our society. We're playing out the string as a society. We're done. We're cooked. We're like a bad baseball team trying to hit 162. Social media has destroyed us.
Yeah, we're like the Phillies.
Yeah.
All right, so let's. There's a lot to get to, and as I mentioned, you have plenty of new articles since we last chatted. Let's start with Zach Ertz, and it seems to be, back in the forefront here. The Zach Ertz, where and when will he be traded topic?
Yeah, I mean, because today is June 1st, and that's the demarcation line of the NFL offseason. So, it becomes a little bit easier from a salary cap standpoint. And the Eagles need some money. They got $4 million today at 4:00 because of previous designations on Alshon Jeffrey and Malik Jackson, previous June 1st designations. But they also got to sign their rookie class still. They got about $7.8 million. You take off 3.7 of that for the rookies. And they still need some holes to be filled. And if you start talking about really big trades like Julio Jones, which it's not going to happen, but they were interested. They did call. We have had that confirmed. They have, at least entertained the discussion. If you want to make a move like that, if you want to make even moves like Steven Nelson, you need some more flexibility. Zach Ertz would be an obvious piece to that. He would, by trading him, even releasing him, you get $8.5 million of cap space, so that would be very helpful. And the Eagles could do some other things as well with Fletcher Cox as far as a restructure. Lane Johnson. It also makes it easier to trade people. So Brandon Brooks talked to us last week. He confirmed that there were trade discussions. That becomes easier. A lot of things could happen, and that's why June 1st is a key date. But it doesn't mean it's going to happen now. It doesn't mean it's going to happen in the next 24 hours. I will admit that my ears kind of perked up when I saw the Bills restructure Stephon Diggs to get money under their cap. Excuse me, getting all choked up talking about this, Ryan. To get money over under their cap, because that makes you think they're trying to make a move. They need a tight end. That's a team that would make a lot of sense for a veteran player because they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender if everything goes right. So I do think Buffalo is a team to keep an eye on, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen, as I said, right away.
You mentioned Julio Jones. Your thoughts and updates with him?
Well, I think, he's obviously going. He's pretty much another one of those players forcing himself out of a situation he didn't necessarily want to be in. And who knows if he knew he was on the air with Shannon Sharp or not. I think he knew, but unless he confirms it, we'll never completely know. But I do think he's 32 years old. He makes a lot of money. So similar to what I said about Zach Ertz, it's going to be a contender. I think that makes the most sense. A team that thinks they're really close. Seattle seems to be the leader in the clubhouse, so to speak. Tennessee has been speculated as the leader. I think from Atlanta's standpoint, the obvious, when you make these types of moves, you want to get them out of the conference at the bare minimum. So I think they would prefer to send them to Tennessee or New England. But, if you get the best deal, you get the best deal. And that would put a team like Seattle in the equation. And they've had their own issues with Russell Wilson and him complaining about the offensive line. But I got to tell you, if you add Julio Jones and DK Metcalf and Lockett, that's going to make the quarterback pretty happy.
New article you have out on SI.com, John, talking about the defense and new defensive coordinator Jonathon Gannon taking illusion of complexity to the defensive side of things. Only Darius Slay right now that you can really rely on in the secondary/DB spot. So talk a little bit more about what you wrote.
Yeah, I love JG, as he wants to be called, because when he had his press conference, he was so refreshing because he offered information. Now, I think that will change as the PR staff gets a hold of him, Howie Roseman gets a hold of him, and they tell him to tone it down a little bit. But I think the funniest part of his opening press conference with us, well, the funniest part was him saying, hey, I wanted to talk to you, but I wasn't allowed. The second funniest part was when he said, basically, and I put this in the article, I'm just paraphrasing, but the exact quote is in there, everybody runs the same thing. Everybody. So, you constantly hear both more on the offensive side, but both sides. Fans talk about creativity, Ryan. You got to be creative, Ryan. There's no creativity in this offense. And then someone like Gannon goes up there and tells the truth. Everybody runs the same thing. It's how you do it, how you execute. And, that's where I think he's going to be a little bit, and that's where I put the illusion of complexity. It's something Sean McVay talks about, and you can see it on the offensive side of the ball in Los Angeles. What he does is a ton of pre-snap movement, designed to look complicated to the fan base, and it's designed to test the discipline of the defense in their eyes and where they go. And sometimes they panic. And then after all that pre-snap movement is done, everything gets very simplified as far as what they're running play-wise. And then it's about execution. I think Jonathon Gannon is going to be the same way on defense. He's going to do a lot of pre-snap disguising in the case of the defense. And then he's going to play cover 2 or cover 3 behind it and hope to fool the quarterback with the pre-snap stuff. And that's what we're talking about. And that's what the NFL has become, this basically cat and mouse game of trying to make the other side undisciplined, basically. We always talk about the scaled-down practice time. Guys aren't used to it. Maybe they see something, maybe it throws them off, and they don't do what they're supposed to do. That is the goal of every coach in this league, and it's kind of a dirty little secret that John Gannon let people in on.
And it sounds great, and I'm not saying I doubt him by any means, but don't you need talent to be able to have that really be helpful and an actual disguise? You need the talent to make things even more complicated on the other side of things. And then part 2 of this, John, is how many quarterbacks can you realistically fool in the NFL? I would imagine any elite veteran quarterback is going to be able to work through that illusion.
Yeah, but there aren't a lot of those guys, Ryan.
Yeah,
there really
true.
aren't. You're not going to fool Tom Brady. You're not going to fool Aaron Rodgers. You're not going to fool guys like that. A lot of young quarterbacks you're going to be able to fool, and it's really a big part of every game plan when you're facing off against a younger quarterback, and you'll see it with the opposition in Jalen Hurts as the Eagles season goes on. So there are certain guys, you're probably going to be in trouble as far as if you're trying to manipulate what they're seeing as far as coverage is pre-snap. And then it comes down to talent and execution. And it always if you have good players, it's easy. I always go back to Jimmy Johnson. That's a long time ago when you could practice. And there were 2-a-days. And everybody was ultra prepared. That was a dynasty. And even after had a couple Jerry Jones had a couple too many gin and tonics and went to Barry Switzer. They even won Barry Switzer, who's one of the worst coaches in the history of the NFL, but they just had better players than everybody else. And Jimmy, to his credit, had the Hall of Fame offensive line, Larry Allen, Eric Williams, Mark Stepnoski, Nate Newton, on and on and on. Had one of the greatest running backs of all time in Emmitt Smith. They had three running plays in that entire dynasty. Everybody knew what was coming. They couldn't do anything about it. So, yeah, it's always about talent. And if you got better players, it's going to be a lot easier for you.
All right, so speaking of players, and we'll keep it on the defensive side of things, Eric Wilson, linebacker, coming over from Minnesota, knows a lot of the terminology that Gannon's going to be using with this new scheme. New, I guess we'll see how new it really is with the illusion more so than anything else, as you discussed. But what's Wilson's role going to be on this team on defense?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be one of the 2-3 down linebackers, so he's going to be on the field all the time unless something drastic happens. Obviously, we always talk about injuries. We're not, that's the stipulation always, but if by some strange act of God, somebody like Davion Taylor just the light switch goes off and they say, we got to get this guy on the field, which I do not think is going to happen. Eric Wilson and Alex Singleton, and we talked about talent, and it's probably not good enough at the linebacker position, but it's better than what they had last year, so that's positivity. The one thing Eric Wilson does, he's undersized, he's very fast, he's good coverage linebacker, had one of the few linebackers in football that had 3 sacks and 3 interceptions. Also had 2 fumble recoveries. Now, I told you what that AFC personnel director said. He's like a 20-point scorer on a bad NBA team. So that part's not a positive. He can't stop the run. I think he's going to be the guy with the green dot on his helmet, which is the one making the communication from Jonathon Gannon to the rest of the defense in the huddle. So he's going to be a very important player to this team. And he's better than what they had, but he's not good enough, is how I would describe it.
All right, we'll take better, I guess. We'll see. John McMullen every night for your football fix and basketball at 7:30. John, what do you have cooking tomorrow on Birds 365 with Jody Mack?
Yeah, a big get tomorrow.
Ooh.
We got Mike Sealski, and that's a big get. But an even bigger get is Amy Trask, who is the ex-CEO of the Raiders and the highest-ranking female in the history of the NFL, to talk about the highest-ranking female in personnel in the history of the NFL. And Catherine Race, who the Eagles obviously promoted last week. And the reason you have to say about Catherine is that she's the highest-ranking personnel person because Amy exists, and she was the CEO, so she was even higher on the totem pole with the Raiders. So nobody better to talk about that promotion and how historic it is for not only the Eagles but the entire NFL.
Great get. Tomorrow, Birds 365, Johnny Mack and Jody Mack starting at 8 a.m. On the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. You're not going to want to miss it. All right, John, have a good night. We'll see what the Sixers do tomorrow back at the Wells Fargo Center.
We know Joel's MRI. That'll tell the tale.
Yeah, we may never know.
All right,
Doubtful.
thanks, Ryan.
Later, man. There he is, Johnny Mack. Dropping some knowledge, having some fun, letting me bitch and moan about Ben. All right, 1919. Not talking about the year the World Series was fixed. It's knotted up 1919, Boston and Brooklyn. Just under 4 minutes to go in the first quarter. All right, Boston, backs against the wall, keeping it close for now. Let's see if they're able to maintain it and give us some entertainment. In this Game 5 against the Brooklyn Nets. We have the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Carolina Hurricanes. No score. About 7 minutes to go in the first period, just under 8. We'll keep you updated on all the live action. 9 p.m. Portland, Denver. 10 p.m. Lakers, Phoenix. All right, let's get to the top of the hour VSiN update. We'll come back at the 8 p.m. hour underway. Still plenty more to get to here on The Fix. Marcus Hayes from the Philadelphia Inquirer joins us at 9 p.m. Keep it locked in on The Fix, AM 1490, Sports Betting Radio.